Welcome to our first live edition of Mindfulness for Athlete podcast, a podcast that is brought to you by MW Sports Psychology Consulting Group. The mission and the purpose of Mindfulness for Athlete podcast is to focus on providing mental and psychological services to athletes that will increase and improve their overall performances, skills, and abilities, and also assist them to work through their emotional distress and maladaptive behavior patterns by altering or correcting errors in their respective thought, perception, and belief. Hi, my name is Mike Waller. I'm a certified sports psychologist and a clinical professional counselor here at MW Sports Psychology Group. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about what is a sports psychologist and what do we do. A sports psychologist usually works with athletes, high school, colleges, and university, as well as professional sports teams. We help athletes with assessing their performances and what tools they use to help increase their overall performances. For example, if an athlete is having some issues or problem trying to get through or work through their situation or problem while they're playing their particular sport, then they will seek out a sports psychologist as opposed to a mental health counselor, which in some cases they can, but to get to the basic as far as improving and enhancing their tools and techniques, they will definitely seek out a sports psychologist. Sports psychologist addresses psychological issues such as performance anxiety, imposter syndrome, and substance use. The reason why I say substance use because, believe it or not, athletes have a tendency to resort to self-indulgent into substances that will enhance, or in some cases, if they are not in control or in charge of their behavior, that it will decrease their ability to go out and perform regardless of what that sport is. So again, as a sports psychologist, we work with that athlete to work through the use of those substances and what have you. So again, that's another thing that, as a sports psychologist, that I specifically work with athletes to make sure that they stay as open-minded, clear-minded, absent of any substance or alcohol that will get in the way and interfere with their ability to participate in their respective sport. Also, as a sports psychologist, I specifically use psychological and mind-body techniques to improve their performances. For example, breathing, distraction tools, because athletes are easily distracted, especially if you're playing tennis, like my background is in tennis. That's why in tennis, the big fact that it is 80% mental. Any little distraction, for example, we just had the U.S. Open that took place this past week, and I noticed specifically when Francis Tiafoe played against Taylor Fritz, and he was highly motivated. He was on top of his game, but as he got into the fifth set, it looked like he was just worn out. And so I can only imagine what was going through his mind in order to keep him motivated, because he was really determined, because he had reached the semifinals just a set away from getting into the finals. So I was just rooting for Tiafoe Francis, but for whatever reason, it looked like something got in the way, a distraction, being tired, got in his way and got, prevented him from actually winning. So again, considering that you were somewhat in a slump for a minute, but you came through the week before in the Cincinnati Open, and then in the U.S. Open you did considerably and remarkably well. So hats off to you, Francis. Also, we use techniques such as intervention, mindfulness, imagery, and visualization. And the one thing I love about imagery is that you can imagine seeing yourself going out there, whether it be football, basketball, tennis, or whatever sport you play. And if you imagine yourself doing well, just picturing, visualizing in your mind that you're going to perform well step by step. One of the things that I used to do as a tennis player, and one of the tools that I had that I played was that I considered my best asset was my backhand. And I used to imagine, hitting shots down the line, cross court. I would dare my opponent would, come in on a serve or a volley or what have you after a rally and come into my backhand, and I would intentionally or purposely move around to my backhand because I knew that I would just demolish you on the backhand side. So the same thing in watching Stephen Curry, when it comes to hitting those threes, I can only imagine, in addition to his practice, that he goes out there and imagine and see himself shooting those threes, and that's why he does a great job going out there hitting those threes anywhere on the court, because I'm sure in addition to practice, like I said, he imagined and see himself hitting those threes time consistently in and out each time that he does it, and to the point where it's just like it has become a natural phenomenon for him. Also, a sports psychologist can help an athlete work through their sports injury. One of the biggest things that I see that athletes have when they're subdued or interfered or interrupted by injury, it is the most difficult thing for them to bounce back after that injury. And one of the things that I work with athletes that are injured specifically is I go back and remind them what they were doing prior to getting injured. So a part of the process or the routine in getting back post-injury is that you have to again imagine and seeing yourself getting beyond or going beyond that injury. It's a mental thing. That's why we say mindfulness for athlete, because once you have captured that in your mind, that you see yourself, going beyond that injury, it helps to move back into that direction of recovering from that injury. And so to regain the confidence and the ability, they continue to perform through techniques of motivation and optimism. You have to be optimistic that you will recover from that injury and redeem yourself to be able, and also motivate yourself by going through and doing, not rushing yourself, because one of the things that I've seen that athletes do is they rush themselves when it comes to getting back on that field, getting back on the court, whether it be basketball or tennis or football. You have to take your time, because your body is realigning and readjusting itself from that injury. Because if you're not careful, that injury could show and reappear itself later on. So you have to go through a methodical process, routine of not just physical endurance, energy, etc. You have to capture it as well mentally, because to avoid rushing yourself, you have to mentally condition and see yourself along with the conditioning and the therapy, the physical therapy, etc., seeing yourself back out there playing that. So again, as opposed to rushing yourself, take your time to go. And so that's one of the things that as I work with athletes to regain themselves, to restore themselves, to get back pre-injury and post-injury, because you can do it, but it does take it is not only physical, but it is mentally as well. a sports psychologist can also help athletes to work through life issues by helping them to prepare as they look forward toward the end of their career. So, athlete, and I give it to LeBron James for an example, who has been playing this for more than 20 some years. So, as he's get close and closer to his end, I'm sure not just keeping his body physically, he also have to keep his mind up to par because, and unlike back in the day, these athletes do not appear to be staying in the game a lot longer. You're not going to see a lot of Tom Brady or LeBron James, because it takes not just a physical, but they kept their mind going as well, building that mental endurance, doing mental exercises, etc. So that's one of the benefits I see, that as they prepare for their future, that they know at some point it's going to come to an end, because you're not going to be able to be out there all alone consistently and continually. So again, a sports psychologist work with an athlete as they prepare toward the career end. And lastly, what we do as sports psychologists, we work closely with coaches, physical trainers, therapists, and physicians, because again, it's the mental apparatus that is a part of preparing and getting them ready to go out there and compete, And so one of the things that I've seen in talking to athletes and trying to get them to come in to talk to me as a sports psychologist is that they have that conviction that they don't need it, the shame factor, the stigma. And I can rest assure you, and that's why I take my hats off to the number one female tennis player, Swiatek. She traveled with a sports psychologist. Again, tennis is 80% mental. And so going through in and out, day in and day out, traveling here, and there when it comes to tennis, if your mind is not strong, that's why I also am looking at Coco Gauff, who I love dearly, what she's going through, her mental episode, the mental bout, the distraction on the court, off the court. So again, a sports psychologist plays a very intricate and an instrumental role in assisting that player. So again, the purpose of this podcast, and I'm glad we get the opportunity to talk to you, is that to focus on the mental and the psychological of the athlete in increasing and improving their overall abilities, skills, and to work through their emotional distress. Thank you for tuning in. You have seen and witnessed your first episode of Mindfulness for Athlete, which you will see featured there. You can I appreciate your likes and your subscribe to MW Sports. Stay tuned. If you have any calls or questions you may have, you can also call us at 725-529-1271. Again, you've been listening to Mindfulness for Athlete podcast, brought to you by MW Sports Psychology Consulting Group. Again, my name is Mike Waller, certified sports psychologist and clinical professor and counselor. Look forward to talking to you again soon.